The first 5 minutes or so of Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets are probably some of the most beautiful visual storytelling anyone has put to film in decades, and certainly one of the most forward-looking and optimistic streams of sound and imagery the medium has ever been used to convey, maybe ever. Essentially an expository montage demonstrating how, over the course of centuries, present-day space program might, through cooperation and mutual respect, grow beyond the borders of nation and ultimately species to form the idealized, intergalactic melting pot megalopolis of the title. It's an all but wordless vision somewhere in tone between The Martian's onward and upward futurism and Guardians of the Galaxy's heartfelt humanism that seamlessly bridges the hopes of the space age with the dreams of pulp era science fiction that not even the best of Star Trek has ever quite managed. It's the most visually beautiful and thematically awe-inspiring stretch of cinema that Luc Besson has produced in the entirety of his career, his masterpiece, the single stretch of celluloid that he deserves to be remembered for. The rest of it is not quite that good, not even close. It's not bad, it's messy, it's awkward, it's bizarrely constructed at points and verges over into weirdly problematic, but also ingenious, ambitious, and occasionally brilliant. It's just that nothing was gonna beat that gangbusters intro. Not the rest of the movie, probably not the rest of any other movie I'm gonna see this year. So when I tell you Valerian is a must-see, that's the main reason why. Anyway, based on a long-running series of French-language graphic novels that directly inspired Star Wars and, well, pretty much every big-scale sci-fi franchise from that point on in one way or another, Besson's long-awaited follow-up to The Fifth Element is a futuristic conspiracy thriller by way of a near-non-stop chase movie, Jason Bourne of the Stars by way of The Roadrunner. Dane DeHaan and Cara Delevingne are Valerian and Laureline, a sort-of romantically partnered pair of special agents who discover that a magic MacGuffin they were tasked with fetching at the story's beginning is at the center of shadowy, dark dealings surrounding a supposed evil force growing in the depths of the massive Alpha space city, where hundreds of thousands of diverse species from across the galaxy exist in chaotic but sustained relative peace that threatens to be ripped apart unless they can uncover exactly what is going on, up to and including which side they're actually supposed to be on. And if that sounds potentially confusing, don't worry. The film is practically tripping over its own feet in a rush to reveal what's actually going on, possibly because somebody got worried that too much plot and unanswered questions would distract from the main point of showing off all the different aliens, technology, neighborhoods, big cosmic ideas that Besson was clearly much more interested in realizing on film than the earnest, well-meaning, but pretty standard issue space police story. Even then, if you do get lost, just remember that this is 21st century sci-fi, so whoever looks like an analog for present-day Western military powers is probably bad, and whoever looks like a somewhat condescending analog for indigenous victims of colonialism is probably good, and you'll be right back on track. See, this is definitely one of those movies where the journey is the destination. Between the deliriously imaginative aliens and the spectacularly realized locales, it's safe to say that there are more ideas in a single chase scene in this movie than in the entirety of most other films I've seen this year. The first main story sequence takes place in an alien shopping mall where the loss prevention is achieved by keeping the stores in another dimension, accessible only through personal wormholes. There's enough invention in just this one sequence to fuel an entire other franchise, and here it just gets burned off as a set piece and the movie goes, okay, that was cool, now bring in the next batch of unbelievably awesome stuff. I also really like that it's utterly unconcerned with looking badass or otherwise fitting into the narrow definitions of what constitutes American blockbuster cool. These are defiantly silly, goofy-looking aliens in a preposterous and utterly implausible world, and no one in the film ever turns around to wink at the audience about how absurd everything is. There are big chubby fish wearing spacesuits, frogmen fishing for humans, Rihanna as a shape-shifting jellyfish burlesque dancer. One of the main species are these big skinny lavender people from Planet Lisa Frank, basically. It's like a Futurama movie, but with all the self-aware punchlines taken out. Unfortunately, some self-awareness, at least at the adaptation level, might have helped fix some of the more glaring flaws. There's some very unfortunate design choices when it comes to the aliens and costuming that'll definitely earn some criticism for cultural insensitivity, and an exposition dump involving Rihanna's backstory feels particularly tone-deaf when applied to a character who exists as a plot device. Also, there's no getting around the fact that Dane DeHaan doesn't quite work in the lead role. Granted, Luc Besson has never been thought of as an actor's director, and this feels very much like a movie where the instruction amounted to hit your mark, read your dialogue, and affect a personality via attitude, and surprise, surprise, the model and the musician are really good at it, while he is really not so much. Some of it seems to be rockin' a hard place casting stuff. Going with the ultra-young looking leads for Valerian and Laureline feels designed to make the outdated pulp hero tough guy aggressive flirting play less dodgy than it might have with grown-ups in 2017, like DeHaan trying to look roguish mostly just looks like a 10-year-old doing doing an impression of Star-Lord, but once the plot calls for him to play the jaded, seen-it-all tough guy, it just doesn't quite land. The seeds of a movie star are there with this kid, he's just not quite there yet. Valerian is a genuinely visionary work of art that falls short mainly by shooting higher than any one film could have reasonably managed. It's beautiful, imaginative, creative, ingenious, and takes aesthetic risks that are worth applauding all on their own, even when they contribute to some parts of it being draggy and messy. It's a pure energy delight that just feels like it maybe should have been more, but still brings more to the table than most other blockbusters you're going to see this year. And again, that opening, better than most entire movies. 3 stars, without question, a big screen must-see. Especially so that in 5 years, when the wannabe RiffTrax imitators, smug YouTube snarkers, Razzie yucksters, and other assorted low-hanging fruit swatters have moved on and it gets rediscovered just like The Fifth Element needed to be, you can say you were there all along.